So, welcome, Rabbi Veffer. We're happy that you will be opening us your opening words from the Galilee Green.
And the Garlows for inviting us. It's a special opportunity and pleasure for us. I came all the way down from the Galilee today. It took me almost 3 hours because of traffic, but it's our pleasure to be here. And what we do in the Galilee is we have an olive oil business, and Rabbi Yehuda was talking about pure, authentic, without any impurities olive oil. That's what we do, and we send it worldwide, and you're going to have a chance to taste it in a minute. But I was also asked to say a few words about the biblical aspects of what we're doing. And Rabbi Yehuda mentioned the olive oil, and you only need a little bit. And we had the opportunity, and it wasn't a coincidence, to stand and meet underneath the menorah, which the state of Israel chose to be its national symbol. And there's no coincidence, and there's a reason for that. But the menorah is mentioning to Rabbi Gidon here that the menorah is empty out there. But even empty, that menorah is important. But what do we need to do with the menorah? We need to have it light the light. But you can't light the light unless you have some fuel, and that's the olive oil. Now, what people don't necessarily know is, what is the olive oil representing? Right? At one level, I use it last night. Rabbi Yehuda used the candles. I only light, and the Talmud tells us, it's best to light with extra virgin olive oil. Shemen Zayit Zach, we call it. And we use that fuel to light it. So we use it for the light. But this is the most delicious tasting stuff you've ever had. We use it to eat, right? That's what it was here. In ancient Israel, olive oil was the basis of the entire economy. In terms of, we were exporting olive oil throughout the Roman Empire. And also, but more importantly, we used it for the spiritual side. Everything has its physical aspect and its spiritual aspect. The more important role for the olive oil was in the temple. And what did it do? It shone the light out of the temple. And the sages tell us that the light represents Torah. We say, Ner mitzvah. You drive by an archaeological dig, what's the first thing you bring up? A little olive oil lamp, right? They're everywhere. A mitzvah, to do one of the commandments in the Torah, is a mitzvah. It's ner. And Torah is or. Torah is the big thing that gives out the light. And that represents the wisdom. The wisdom for what? It's instructions for living. And what are the Jewish people compared to in the Torah? We're compared to the olive and the olive oil. The Jews are considered the olive oil. Some say the reason why we're compared to olive oil is because if you take an olive and you crush it, you try to destroy it, what happens? You get this beautiful, pure thing that lights up the world. We're indestructible. But more importantly, it represents our job. That's who we are. Who are we? We're the ones that are providing the fuel to spread the Torah, the wisdom from the Almighty. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, from out of Zion goes Torah, udvar Hashem Yerushalayim, and the word of the Almighty from Jerusalem. And the rabbis teach us that Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, that's the actual Torah instructions, and dvar Hashem is the words of the prophets to give us rebuke, the Jewish people rebuke, when we're not doing our job, when we forget to do our job. So now think about it. The temple was there and the menorah was lit in order to bring forth the light of the Torah. To bring out the light of the Torah to the world, to the nations. Le'or goyim, to be the light for the nations, meaning giving the nations the opportunity to have the wisdom to achieve their potential. Now, what happens if you don't have the olive oil? If you don't have the olive oil, you don't have the light. The light doesn't get spread. If the light doesn't get spread, everything collapses. The world is destroyed. So in order to send forth the light to protect the world, we need to have the fuel, the Jewish people, where in Israel, which is like the menorah, the physical menorah, In order to work together, you need Eretz Yisrael. The state chooses the menorah. You need Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel, where the olive oil. And you need Torah Yisrael, which is the abstract, and that's going to be sent forth through the windows of the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, which were spread out this way. Not to let light in, but to send the light out. But in a fortress, if you walk along the walls of the old city, you see, to defend the place, you need it to spread out that way so you can shoot, and the enemy can't get you. So there's a double thing going on here. We can send out the light, and we're protected. When we send out the light, when we send out the Torah, the Jewish people are protected. I just want to finish with this quick little thing, and then you'll get a chance to taste some olive oil. Rabbi Zev Leff was at a soccer match. The people in Israel probably know this. There was a soccer match between Israel and Scotland, and there was a goal scored by Israel. And the cameras, the non-Jewish commentator had the camera on this guy with a big white beard, and he was reading from a book, and the announcer said, "Must be a really good book to miss the goal." Rabbi Zev Leff is one of my rabbis. He taught me a lot of Torah. And afterwards, when he came back and he heard the whole world had seen him on television reading his book, he told us the book was the Jerusalem Talmud. He was learning the Jerusalem Talmud while he was at the soccer match. He told me this once, a story about Hanukkah and the relationship between the Jewish people and the nations. He said, and we thank everybody so much and what you're doing, and all of our non-Jewish friends supporting the state of Israel. It's so important to us. But listen to the story that he told us, and I'm finishing with this. He said, the Jewish people are like olive oil, and the nations of the world are like water. Just like water sustains you. You can't live without water. You can live without olive oil. But if you take 0.25%, just a little sliver, a molecule of oil, less than 0.1%, and you put it on a bowl of water, and you stick it outside on a sunny day, what happens? Nothing. The water can't evaporate because it's protected by the oil. The water is supporting the oil, and the oil is protecting the water. It's a symbiotic relationship. You see that? Now, what happens if you take that bowl or that bottle and you shake it all up so that the oil gets all mixed up in with the water, and now you put it outside on a sunny day? What happens? The water evaporates, the oil collapses, goes to the bottom, everything is destroyed. That's the relationship between the non-Jewish world and the Jewish world. That's the relationship. Now, one thing you have to appreciate, and I'm finishing, Rabbi Zev Leff says, if we forget that, if the Jewish people forget that we have to stay pure, unblemished, stay focused on our national goal, and we get mixed up and we start taking on the customs of the Greeks, of the other society, we get all mixed up, it's disaster for everybody. So either one of two things has to happen. The Jewish people have to make Kiddush. The Jewish people have to choose to pull themselves back up and back to the land to play our role. Or the non-Jewish world will make Havdalah. The non-Jewish world will understand that the Jewish people have to go back and do their job and reject them for their society. Thank you very much.